Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest episode of the Huddle. A special guest today, Adam Wexler, PrizePicks CEO, and someone who I spoke to, I don't want to say many years ago and make myself feel old, but one of my first interviews at Gambling Insider. So, Adam, really pleased to speak to you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I think it was 2018, towards late 2018 when we first spoke. It's been a long journey since.
Yeah, well, we've stayed the course, for the most part. We haven't veered very, very far off of, where we started.
hmm Um, Talk to us about how the business has grown and maybe changed since then.
So I've been in the fantasy sports industry since 2014. Prize Picks represents our third product, and we got Prize Picks off the ground in fall 2017, and we were in private beta for 11 months. We formally launched it in the fall of 2018, when I think it was around the time we connected, and we built it methodically in the first couple of years. And for example, we always prioritized creating a best-in-class customer support operation. Saw that as a big opportunity in the industry that wasn't really doing real-time support. And then the pandemic hit, and we almost went out of business.
Mhm.
I think a lot of businesses, when your revenue is dependent on sports being played, that was a tough time. But I've been an entrepreneur my whole career. I'd already been through 2015 with this industry before, so that was a good prep for 2020. And when I said we built this thing methodically in the first couple of years, what we were very focused around, in addition to building that customer support organization and scaling support alongside our customer growth, was we were very honed in on the unit economics, because the unit economics were always quite strong. And so when we came back around from the pandemic and sports come roaring back, we had pent up demand. And then you fast forward to 2021, and we felt compelled to step on the gas, and we really haven't looked back since.
Mhm. You mentioned the pent-up demand after the pandemic. In terms of general demand, I mean, fantasy sports is still as popular as ever. I mean, am I correct in saying that?
I'd say it's arguably more popular than ever in the United States
Mhm.
at this point. We have become the largest paid fantasy operator in North America. Uh, I think it's safe to say that season-long fantasy, especially season-long fantasy football, has only grown in popularity all the while. Maybe fantasy baseball is going in the wrong direction. Season-long fantasy basketball was never a thing, which is another thing we could touch on, because I think one of the keys to our success is that nobody had really cracked the code on fantasy basketball until Prize Picks came around, and that's become our number one sport.
Mhm. There's been quite a lot of new kind of fantasy sports players. We've interviewed a few on the Huddle kind of over the years. Do you think it's a sector that presents a lot of barriers to entry? Because I will note that some of the ones I've spoken to, I haven't heard maybe necessarily that much progress on in the next sort of in the years since. I don't know what your thoughts are, kind of perhaps at fantasy for startups and newer players.
I mean, look, I think that in the case of our category, it has this, we represent the innovation side of fantasy sports. And, we built a business largely, looking at the laws that were getting drawn up in, 2015, 2016, 2017. And, I had been in the industry. I had also experienced things and experienced what worked, but also what didn't work. And our previous product was a great precursor to this one, because our previous product was an add-on to season-long fantasy leagues. And what we realized through that experience was, I'd want to challenge you, but you wouldn't want to accept that challenge.
Mm,
And so with Prize Picks, what we saw when these laws were getting drawn up was that in only one state out of about 20 states that legalized paid fantasy sports did they specify that fantasy contests had to be peer to peer. And as a result, it really kind of opened the door to other possibilities. And we were not the first operator to focus on what has become well known as kind of the pick'em category, or DFS plus. But we are, we were one of the first two to hit any meaningful level of scale, Monkey Knife Fight being the other one. Monkey Knife Fight was purchased by Bally's, but we just stayed the course, obviously, as a privately held business, and now are reaping the benefits.
Mhm. Geographically, where are you seeing the most success, the biggest revenue at the moment?
Well, in terms of over-indexing, we over-index the most in our home market of Georgia. I think
Mhm.
it's where we've done a number of partnerships. We're I think in our fourth year with the Atlanta Braves this year. We've done partnerships with the Falcons and the Atlanta United as well. So Georgia definitely over-indexes most relative to the population. But then there's also states like Texas and California have also been really really good to us. And but then you also put us in states where you find online sports betting, and we've got such a differentiated product that we can still gain some traction in those markets because it's just a different experience when you play on PrizePicks.
Mhm. Is it interesting you mentioned sports betting? I mean, obviously, there's no reason we wouldn't mention sports betting. It's so popular at the moment. In terms of, FanDuel and DraftKings back in the day started out with fantasy, and that built a great database for they now got a lot of market share in sports betting. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap with fantasy and traditional sports betting. In terms of your long-term visions for the business, is that something PrizePicks is kind of looking to perhaps evolve and get into, or are you, as you say, are you saying that differentiation in your product is that kind of always the aim to keep that?
Something I think we touched on a number of years ago, but we love the lane that we're in, and
Mhm.
so it's a how I describe it. It's a skill-based prediction gaming is our lane, and it's a big market opportunity. And we've seen that with just how many operators have entered our own market, including DraftKings, for what it's worth. Um, but in general, no, it's a we as it stands, we do not have sports betting on our roadmap. Now, if certain states where we're especially strong, legalize sports betting, we may have to make a different calculation. But when our focal points have been on the southern United States, which is we are arguably the only operator in what we call Braves country or SEC
Mhm.
country in America, and so we have created the best fan engagement solution for southern United States for the southern United States region.
And so that really speaks to, I mean, you touched on it already, but the health of the kind of fantasy sports market, that you're not looking at sports betting and seeing this maybe superior product or a lot more money in that. For you, there's definitely enough of a market here.
100%. I mean, we are absolutely limited in what we can offer. The fantasy laws stipulate that we have to any lineup submission must involve multiple players from multiple teams. I mean, you're building a fantasy roster at the end of the day. Sports betting can allow you to do which team is going to win, which player is going to, is one specific player going to have, more than 30 points, or they even allowed, what happened with, I don't know if it got to you, but the Jonte Porter, story from the NBA where you could
Mhm.
select five different things from the same player. That's not possible in fantasy sports. So we're definitely, limited in what we're allowed to offer, but it just so happens that where we're situated is where a lot of the trend lines have kind of led to. This is and I mentioned, basketball being our most popular sport. You know, our game is very headshot oriented. It's a very visual product. So it's no one that's one of the probably bigger reasons why basketball would be so strong with us. It's also we're a star driven product, and these basketball players are some of the biggest stars in the world. And
Mhm.
then you see the popularity of social media platforms like Instagram, and we definitely have certain elements that pull in from the social media world as well.
Well, there definitely is a few people have said. I mean, obviously, I'm a Brit and I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'm very team oriented. But there's definitely been pointed out to me by several people that in the US there's a lot more of a player driven culture, and in the NFL, obviously, we saw one individual make a difference. It wasn't even a player. Taylor Swift made a big that kind of impact on kind of supporting and fans, and also actually I think we saw more betting, and there were even markets kind of I know that's not fantasy, that's sports betting, but yeah, there were markets kind of on Taylor Swift and things like that.
Which is something you can't offer in fantasy sports. So,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but yes, we can offer Travis Kelce as long as you find somebody from another team. So once again, like we're limited in what we can offer, but it's definitely, and I also think a big part of our success and our popularity is due to the simple UI UX that we've created. Because I think how most sports betting operators have approached the industry is we've got to basically get on par with the other products that are out there. And there
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been enough differentiation, whereas we were forced to differentiate based off of the fantasy sports laws. So we never even had the ability to think like them. And I think we were always going to, go after we used to, our original tagline, for this product when we might have spoken back then was
Mm-hmm.
stupid, simple fantasy contests. And now, these days, I think we've gone away from stupid simple, but I think it still serves a similar point.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned FanDuel and DraftKings earlier, and of course, when you're talking about fantasy, we can't not mention two kind of giants like that and giants in sports betting now. But obviously, recently there's been sort of some legal updates, regulatory updates that certainly have made headlines. I don't know if you could walk me through them, kind of a breakdown of the situation from the Prize Picks perspective.
Sure. Probably a lot to touch on. But the fact of the matter is, we have been trying to pass, fantasy laws that are, basically pro business, pro innovation. There's some examples around the country where some of those attempts have been thwarted or, counteracted by the legacy fantasy operators. And I think if those, surface as much as they have in the political, arena, people would recognize, what's going on. And I think it's a bit ironic because DraftKings and FanDuel were the ones who largely spearheaded these laws going into place, in the middle of last decade, and yet they're now acting as if that's not what they intended to do. Yet they did specify it in that one state that I called out before. So there were examples of, well, if fantasy sports needed to be peer to peer all along, then why didn't you put it in the laws back then? Because once again, we built a business based around the clarity that those laws were providing. And so, it's a bit ironic and a bit, it's a bit hypocritical, for some of these legacy operators to say that this is not fantasy sports when we've everything we've been doing since inception has been above board.
Do you perhaps see that opposition as maybe a compliment on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, and not to try and be controversial, but that it's that you're seen perhaps as a genuine opponent in the market?
Yeah, I've been on record, saying about as much. I mean, these operators, I think, they recognize that we're gaining plenty of traction. They've the irony is that I think I truly believe that they view us as greater competition than I view them. Not because I don't think that they have good businesses and they can last the test of time. More because another thing that I've been on record stating is that we like to think of Twitter sports as our closest competition. We are competing in the attention economy. The true Prize Picks experience is found between our actual app where you play the game, as well as those that are in our Discord community, for example, that are talking about the prediction that they're going to make, that are talking about these lineups that they're going to create. And currently they're bouncing back and forth between the apps, but we think about it as one kind of holistic experience. And we're all also offering discounts on our players on Twitter, on Twitch, on different platforms. And so we think about it as far as people staying in our ecosystem. And once again, we're competing in the attention economy. So we don't want them to have to go elsewhere, but within the Prize Picks ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Business-wise, recently you've made some key hires. Can you maybe talk to us a bit about that and how the business, I guess, organizationally is growing?
Sure. So, I think we announced not so long ago, we just added a woman by the name of Renee White to our C-suite. She's our chief people officer. She was at Turner Sports previously. It's a great company also based in the Atlanta area that we can pull from. And she was a part of the Bleacher Report acquisition, and it's got plenty relatable, background for a business like ours. We also made a responsible gaming dedicated hire in Phil Sherwood, and Phil is basically tackling day to day, something that we do care a ton about, and it's something that I know that we in the position that we're in need to be the market leaders about. It's something that we've always been conscious of, and and part of why I say that is our mission as a business, and as a brand, has always been to enhance the sports viewing experience. And so, if you want to play Prize Picks tonight, or if you're going to turn on sports for that matter, we would love for you to accompany that with Prize Picks, but you need to play within your means. And so we've definitely got some good ideas, coming around the bend about how we're going to continue to help people do just that and not get too carried away. As well as for those that have gone overboard, we want to be there to help, and we want to make sure that we are. This is an entertainment product at the end of the day.
Fantastic. I've got a couple of areas, couple of additional areas I'd like to ask you about. One, I'm going to look back with you, seeing as we spoke a good sort of 5-6 years ago. But before that, looking ahead, quite a simple question, but you can be very broad with where you go with it. The rest of 2024 and beyond, what are the kind of next big priorities? And you've mentioned a couple already, but the next big targets for PrizePicks.
Well, a couple of things kind of come to mind first. First of all, I mentioned basketball is our top sport. It's not just the NBA; it's also the WNBA, which obviously is just gotten underway very recently. But also, what gets me very excited is the Olympic basketball tournament. I think that's going to be really strong, a really strong performer on PrizePicks. Personally, I'm a huge basketball fan. I think it's going to be the best international tournament we've ever had, and I'm excited to see how it pans out. Beyond that, I think we're also. I go back to what I said earlier, which is our lane is skill-based prediction gaming. We've grown up as a paid fantasy sports operator, specifically with a single-player product. More recently, we've released one peer-to-peer product, and we have in development another peer-to-peer product. Our peer-to-peer product Arena is, I believe, in 8 or 9 states right now, including states like Florida, Arizona, Oregon, and more. And we're actively studying those numbers. We're also on the verge of releasing a newly improved free-to-play product. And that one in particular gets me really excited because it is built off of some things that we've done in the past from a promotional standpoint. And so we've got a lot of great data that we've sat on that could help inform the product roadmap and exactly what the demand for something like that should be. And so we expect to release that here in the coming months. And we think that not only can it add to the top of funnel in our real money gaming states, but it can also really fill out our map across the country. And so very excited about that. And that'll be a big focal point the rest of the year.
Yeah, plenty to look forward to there, but it certainly sounds like you're going to be busy.
We're going to be busy. At the same time, as an entrepreneur, I'm always about a laser-like focus, and I think that's part of why we've seen the success that we have. But yeah, needless to say, we're going to stay busy.
Sure. As I mentioned, looking back since the last time we spoke for an interview, what are you most proud of that you've achieved in that time? And to flip it as well, you mentioned obviously the pandemic, tough times. What was the biggest challenge? And I imagine that probably links to the pandemic.
Yeah, it's great questions, and I don't get asked every day. But I say in terms of last year, the thing that I'm probably most proud of, beyond just the success of the business, is actually the team that we built. We started last year with about 125 people, and about 12, 15 months later, we were about 450. And that doesn't even include the big Philippines operation that we brought in to help us do round the clock coverage. We talk about being that best in class customer support organization, what we call a member experience at PrizePicks. So that's probably the thing that I'm most prideful about. But then, as far as your other question goes, I referenced it before, the 2015 fallout, and when the industry the bottom fell out of the industry, as well as 2020. They both had a lot of kind of similarities. The 2015 one was arguably a tougher one for me because we just were not in a position for that to happen when we were coming out of an accelerator program. And so, 2016 was very much a year of exploration. We said, can we take this same concept to other verticals outside of fantasy sports? The golf course, the bowling alley, even esports, even video game contests, which actually probably planted a seed in my head because esports is a big part of what we do at PrizePicks. And then it was ultimately heading into 2017 where we decided to refocus on fantasy sports, and obviously, conceptualized what became, PrizePicks that year, and been growing it ever since. So I really do think that it was the fall of 2015 that was probably the hardest part of the last 10 years, even harder than the pandemic for me.
Hmm. Hopefully those challenging times are in the rearview mirror, but as you kind of explained there, from every challenge, and especially someone with an entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to learn from all of them.
No doubt. We learn something new every day, I'd say. So, it's a very dynamic business. It's a very dynamic environment. Obviously we have to, have different offerings depending on, how the regulations may change. But, we're such a nimble operation that I'm really, proud of the team and our ability to bob and weave over the last year as, we were minding our own business for the first 6 years of our growth. And then all of a sudden, regulators came in and said they even in states where we possessed licenses and gotten approved for licenses, they came in and wanted to tweak the rules. So we just had to move with the rules, and I think we've done a really strong job.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, been a pleasure to catch up with you again, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon. But best of luck with everything you're looking to achieve, and yeah, it sounds like there's plenty in the pipeline.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, and to our viewers, thanks for watching as well.